You're listening to the Lifestyle Business Show with Lucy Gordon, the podcast of building a more profitable business that gives you the lifestyle and freedom you desire. I share strategies to streamline your business, increase your income, and reclaim your time so that you can spend more time doing what you love. Welcome to a very sweaty episode of the Lifestyle Business Show, today coming to you from a heatwave in the UK, and it is very, very warm. So I'll try to make it quick. Today I wanted to talk to you about ways to protect your time. One of the things with running a business, and particularly if we're trying to run a lifestyle business, is that we want to free up as much time as possible to be able to do the things that we actually want to do. And if we're spending too much time in our business doing activities that aren't moving the dial and that aren't progressing us towards our goals, then effectively that is wasted time. So today I wanted to talk to you about some techniques that I use to be able to free up my time and how you can help protect your time as well. I do have a free resource that you can download if you want to get a full list of things. And to get that, just go to lucygordon.com/time. So the very first thing I do every week to protect my time is to plan my time. It might feel slightly counterintuitive to dedicate some time of your day to planning, but actually it makes a big difference. I actually normally at the end of each day do this exercise as well, but particularly I do it on a Sunday evening or on a Monday morning, just so that I have my plan for the whole week set out. So what I do is I think of the main things that I want to achieve over the next 5 days. So that could be that I really need to focus on putting marketing materials together. It could be about putting course materials together or doing a client project. Whatever it is, I write down those things and work out how long I think each of them are going to take. I generally try to be a little bit generous, obviously, rather than saying, oh, that thing's only going to take me 5 minutes. Much better to set aside a bit of extra time and then finish early and have some free time to do something else, rather than trying to cram everything into a really short amount of time. So I create that list of the things I want to achieve. I time block it in my diary with a little bit of buffer time to make sure I'm covering everything. And then that's my plan for the week. Obviously, I then have a bit of extra free time in case something else crops up that's a bit more last minute or that I want to jump on and do as an extra thing. But by planning it out to begin with, I also know the sort of mindset I need to come into each day with. So I know that, this particular day is a day when I need to record my podcast. So I need to be ready, have a nice quiet environment. I need to have these things set up to be able to do that. And so it becomes much easier to be able to step in and do that because I've sort of got myself in the mindset from the first day of the week. It also means that you know how much time you have available to do extra things if they crop up. Mm-hmm. One of the biggest mistakes I've made in my old business, and I know that lots of people who work as freelancers fall into this trap, is saying yes to things that land on your desk because, it's a paying client and you want to people please your client, etc. But you end up then putting aside the things that you wanted to achieve this week and then not getting your list of things done. So that's why it's really important that you plan out all the things that you want to get done before you then start taking on extra things. Another tip for making sure you do those things that you've said, so you've time blocked them, but also then as soon as you get to your desk, just do them. Don't go and check your emails or check LinkedIn or Facebook or whatever it is. Just do that particular task and then check your emails afterwards. Because as soon as you start checking your emails and your social media, you then go into reactive mode. So instead of prioritizing the thing that you wanted to prioritize, you end up prioritizing the thing that someone else wants you to prioritize. Hopefully that makes sense, and you can see that if you get an email from a client that says, can you do this thing today? Your first reaction is, okay, I better do that thing for them today. And you put your thing aside, even though that was a priority. You need to treat yourself and your business as just as important a client as your actual clients are. Because I like to think about it with those kind of tasks that come in through from clients at the last minute or that come in and sort of disturb your day. If you had never seen that email, you would never be able to do the thing. If you were on holiday, you wouldn't have looked at it. If you were ill, in hospital, you wouldn't have looked at it. So what I'm trying to say is, it's not your problem if a client puts something on your desk at the very last minute. Obviously, unless you've said to them, I'm always available 24/7, etc., etc. But that's not the point of a lifestyle business. So if that's you and you're listening to this, you're probably listening to the wrong podcast. This is for people who want to free up their time so that they can do things that they actually enjoy rather than working 100% of the time. So we need to think about ways that we can protect our time, and prioritising yourself and your business as a key client is one of the best ways to do that. So that's all about, say, time blocking, putting yourself first. There are then lots of ways that we can save time by becoming more efficient in the things that we're doing. So one of my favourite ways to save time, which I clocked onto very quickly in my other business, was replacing meetings with Loom videos. In the corporate world, there's definitely this whole drive of we must constantly have meetings all the time. And ideally, those meetings need to be in person. Luckily, COVID has helped us realise they don't all need to be in person. We can do things online and we can do phone calls. But I don't know whether you get into this, but sometimes you end up having a whole back and forth about what time should we meet. So you're already wasting time discussing when you're going to meet. And then you jump on a call and you have a 60-minute meeting when actually that whole thing could have been covered off in probably 15 minutes. So what I now do is, if I'm delivering a project over to a client, is that I will send them the finished project alongside a video. So a Loom video or Vimeo video or whatever kind of video it is, describing and walking through the project. Then they can watch it in their own time. They can share it with whoever else on the team they need to share it with. And then if they have questions, that's when you can then have a phone call. So instead of having this whole diary tennis back and forth and then sitting on a call for an hour or going to their office for 2 hours and not actually covering anything that you couldn't have covered in 5 minutes on a video, you're just getting through the information much more quickly. The other benefit of doing it that way is it means it's always available for them to look back on and check. So for example, in the line of work that I do in real estate, I'd be building people bespoke financial models that would be very detailed and needed detailed instructions. And so that video would end up being the instructions video, basically. So then anyone who arrives in the company in the future can watch that video, that 10-minute, 15-minute video, however long it is, describing how this financial model works without having to come back to me and ask questions or find this other person who left the company 2 years ago and ask questions. It's a permanent base for them to always refer back to. So videos as a way of communicating with your clients is a wonderful thing. And I know, again, in the coaching side of things, we also do a lot of voice notes, which some people hate, some people love. I do agree with some people who say that they are a sort of lazy form of communication, but actually if you're trying to get quite a lot of information across, then it's better to speak it than it is to, for example, email it. So that's, again, going back to that video, if you want to talk someone through a project, rather than sending a long email saying, check on page 4 for this thing, and then refer over to this bit over here, you can just do that in a really quick video, sharing your screen, talking over the page that you're talking about, and asking for their points of view about this thing that you want them to review. That way, as I said, instead of having the diary of tennis back and forth, you can get a response from them so much quicker, because you send it to them, they can watch it at their own pace that same day or later in the week, come back with a response, and you've not had to go back and forth trying to find a time that works for everyone conveniently. So that's my next big tip, replacing meetings with Loom videos. The next biggest time saver that I found in my business was creating a constant out of office or auto reply and combining that with a client FAQ page. So if you have clients who are always asking the same questions or always emailing you out of your normal working hours, then having an FAQ page and a constant out of office that refers to that FAQ page is super, super helpful. Because you'll find that you have a lot of people asking the same questions. and they might not look on the FAQ page of your actual sales page, because quite often, you know, if you've got a sales page where you're selling a product, you'll have FAQs at the bottom. That does answer most of the questions in there, but sometimes people don't read all of them. They want to email you and ask you that question. So either you can have an autoresponder that says, here are the frequently asked questions that people ask me. If your question is answered within this email, then I won't respond to you personally because it's already covered. Or you can direct them to another bit of a sales page telling them where this FAQ is answered, or you can let them know that you won't be responding to their email within a certain time frame. I always found it helpful as a freelancer. So for all my freelancers out there, if you put a out of office that says you won't respond to your email in X number of days because you are busy or because you're away, then people don't expect a response from you, and they quite often figure out the small problems themselves. Obviously, if there's a big problem that only you can resolve and help answer, then they'll have to wait for your response. But actually, if it's a very small question that they were just being slightly lazy about and asking you, then if they need the answer really quickly before you're going to respond, they will figure it out themselves. And then they'll learn slowly that they can figure out some of these answers themselves, and they don't have to keep going back to you. So that's one of my biggest tips. I found that the number of emails that I received from clients massively reduced as I started being less responsive to emails, basically, because they started, as I say, figuring things out themselves, or we'd check in together on a regular call, and they would just ask their questions on that call rather than constantly every single day over email. So anything that you can do like that, where you're sort of consolidating all of your work into one thing, is a wonderful way of saving time. So, for example, you'll see this in other elements of your work, like putting together templates, for example, for emails or proposals that you can then just go and change the names of, and change the offer that you're talking about, and change the pricing or whatever it is. If you have a standard template for those kind of things, then it will make everything so much easier. And I do always say the thing with running a business, and particularly running a lifestyle business, is that you have to work hard up front to get the result of the free time later. Like, you can't just waltz into it and it will all automatically work. There is hard work that goes into it up front. But that's where, like, yes, you might spend a bit of time putting together those template emails and the template proposals up front. You might have to spend a couple of hours doing that. But then every single time you send a proposal and you send an email later on that fits within the remit of those boxes, then that will only take you a couple of minutes, as opposed to starting from scratch every single time and it taking you half an hour or an hour or 2 hours every single time, because you've got this standard template that you're just copying and pasting, changing the key elements, the date, the name, the pricing, etc., and then it's ready to go. And that's where also creating SOPs, so standard operating procedures for repeat tasks, is super helpful. As a solo business person, if you work by yourself, or even if you work in a small team, you might never have thought about writing SOPs because you think, well, I'm the person who's doing the task, so I know how to do it, I don't need to write it down. But actually, if you write it down, then you don't have to think about it next time. So, for example, one of the things that I do every single week in my business is I do my bookkeeping, and I used to always have to think about, okay, which category am I putting this into, and how am I checking my Xero against my Stripe account, etc. And I was always having to think about it to make sure that I was doing it correctly and following the pattern of what I was supposed to be doing. Then I wrote down the SOPs, and suddenly I was doing it in half the time. Because even though, that particular time when I wrote down and took screenshots of everything I was doing took time, now I just refer back to that and I'm like, okay, step 1, do this, step 2, do that, step 3, do that. And I don't have to actually think about the task anymore. It's just auto. My body's on auto, and it just does it because it just reads the instruction and does it. So even if you are a solo business owner or a very small company where you are responsible for particular tasks and you're unlikely to hand them on to someone else, it's still definitely worth doing those SOPs. Because also in the future, if you do then hand those tasks on to someone else, you already have the SOPs. So you're not having to do then hours and hours of work putting these SOPs together. They're already ready to go, and you can hand them over literally within, 5 minutes notice. Here you go, here are the tasks that I need you to do because I've already written down how I do them. So some kind of tasks that would fall under those, they can be as complicated or as simple as you like. But for example, like how to add a blog to your website, how to schedule an email in your CRM system, how to add a new contact to your pipeline so that you can message them. Like, they can be really, really simple things, but as soon as you automate that process and just make it a system and a procedure that you follow, everything will be so much easier. So there are just a couple of ideas for you in how you can create and protect more time within your business. So planning things out, reducing the number of meetings you host and using videos instead, prioritizing your task, putting yourself forefront as one of your own clients, and prioritizing yourself rather than always being reactive to what your clients want, and then creating templates and SOPs for you to follow and to help you systemize everything that you're doing. If you want more ways of how you can protect your time and become more efficient in your business, then please do go and download my free guide, which you'll find at lucygordon.com/time. Thank you so much, as always, for listening to today's podcast. I'm now going to go and cool off, and I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day. Thank you for listening to the Lifestyle Business Show with Lucy Gordon. If you're ready to spend less time in your business, head to lucygordon.com/time to download your free guide.